Is it on my end? Is the hamsters getting tired? We are live.
What's good, Tom? How you doing, man?
Okay, Coach. How are you, man?
We've had a wild start to the Faithful Review, but you know what? It's no time like the present. We just started. We're in the end of mini camp, and we're going to start the show off the right way. We'll be right back. We are here. We are here. It's your boy, the coach. Welcome back to the Coach's Huddle, where the field meets family. And we finally have a faithful review with my man, 10 grand, Tom Jensen. How are you doing today, Tom? Tom, can you hear me? Tom's having a little bit of technical difficulties right now. We're just trying to make sure that he can get through with the audio. Tom, blink twice if you're alive. Gonna sit here and try to edit Tom's.
I see the live clock. I can't hear you, and
you can't hear me at all.
Frozen, but other than that, we're good.
All right. So right now we're actually live, Tom. Trying to see if we can get anything fixed with you. Can you hear? Can you understand me right now and hear me?
Right now I can. Prior to the last minute or so, I could not.
All right. Right now, right now we're on stream. I see myself clearly. I see you clearly.
Here we go again.
I can hear you clearly. I think it may be your connection, Tom, because I see the broadcast going out clear out to the audience. Right now, we're just trying to figure out how we're going to start the camp.
I will restart my computer and see if that fixes things on my end.
All right, well, come back, Tom.
It takes forever.
Come on back, brother. Okay. We'll be right here. All right, so right here, we're just going to try to roll with the punches, man. Hey, look, we're trying our best, but we got day 2 of mini camp down. We're going to rock out until Tom circles the block and gets back in here. But we are going to get to every last topic that we have. A couple of things that I wanted to start out with. One, we already saw that Greg Joseph and the Jake Moody competition has heated up. Greg Joseph was 7 for 7 previously the day before, and mandatory minicamp. Jake Moody was 6 for 7 in field goals with a new 2-step approach. Guys, I got to be honest with you. Starting a kicker competition with the kicker that you got in the 3rd round. I mean, I don't know, man. I understand that we're trying to make the best out of our situation, and I don't know, maybe we want to put a little bit of heat on Jake. But, you know, I don't know. Getting a kicker, it's almost kind of like we hamstringed ourselves with getting a kicker in the 3rd round and, you know, having a guy and a journeyman in Greg Joseph who's coming in and actually proves that he can do the job as well. That's why you don't get kickers this high. You know, in my opinion, getting a kicker that high is almost like getting a bidet. You know, in theory, it's really putting the emphasis on a use case in your life that you really think that you're kind of like future proofing. But nothing works better than toilet paper. I know Europeans, but it's cheap, it's quick, and you can get it out of the way. Weird segue. Let's get into our first topic, though, roster moves. Do the Niners still have roster holes that need to be filled, or are fans just looking for name insurance at wide receiver, defensive back, and at safety? So the way I see it is that, yes, roster holes need to be filled. But for me, it's not necessarily holes that could have been filled realistically anyway. What are we going to do at safety? Right now, Malik Mustafa is down. We've got Jason Pinnock, Jair Brown moving in. We've also got a couple of guys that we've been looking at as far as the safety group. Outside of Jair Brown, there's Jalen Mahoney, Derek Canteen, Marquis Siegel, which is injured, Richie Grant, and George Odom. Are there holes there? Yes. But are there bodies there? Yes. And it's the same thing with corner. Like, are there holes there for a starting unit? Yeah. You can obviously see that we probably have one guy that we could depend on from the safety position in a starting capacity, and that's Jair Brown, and that's not really saying much. George Odom really didn't give us much. But for me, sometimes we just got to take our lumps because, truthfully, we have holes in our roster, but we're honestly a draft away too. We're still a draft class away. I look at certain holes. If you want to look at different holes that we have on our roster, let's just go down the line. One, let's go with receivers. As far as receivers are concerned, we've got 13 receivers on roster right now. Who is our deep threat? Who's our number one? Who's our slot? We've been hearing about Jordan Watkins, rookie receiver out of Ole Miss that we just picked up this draft. 5'11", 200 pounds, built stout, good route runner. Seems to be the guy who's going to be catching a lot of balls near the line of scrimmage, but can he take the top off? I know he is a 4.3, and I understand that speed translates on paper, but can we count on that? Jawan Jennings. I love Jawan. Is Jawan a number one receiver? We know the answer to that question. It's not here to besmirch him, but no. Brandon Aiyuk, if and when we get Brandon Aiyuk. So look, I do want to talk about this too. We got to touch on this while Tom is trying to get back in here. Dog, I heard about the Brandon Aiyuk conversation. There was a little bit of like an Algonquin roundtable, with Brandon Aiyuk. Terrell Owens seemed to be the main contributor into the conversation, but Patrick Willis and Frank Gore having a one-to-one conversation with Brandon Aiyuk. And when you look at that, for me, I like that conversation. It's not enough of those conversations being had. Sometimes you got to get an OG to wrap his arm around you and just let you know that, you're steering in the wrong path. You're not necessarily guided in the way that you need to be. Brandon Aiyuk, full stop, is a very talented football player. He is a number one receiver. However, in ways in which he's gotten his money, how he's decided to communicate with the media, how he's decided to communicate with his team in public, has shaped certain narratives about him. Because of this, I feel as though that BA believes that he can have his cake and eat it too. And in a sense, so did T.O. BA thinks that he can have problems and issues with certain people in the building, but as long as he's a good teammate, that will absolve all of the bad bidding that he's done as far as relationships across the coaching staff, across the front office, with the fans. And he really believes that as long as he's a good teammate, all else will fall into place. That's cap.
The shit's chess, it ain't checkers.
It don't work that way. I don't care how qualified for your job you are. Nobody wants to work with somebody who they don't like, or who's a malcontent, or they can't trust, or crashes out, or can't be controlled, or can't control himself. Nobody does. That's the number one way that I've seen people get fired all the time. And in a way, you get ostracized and marginalized. People stop wanting to be around you. And you start wondering why. How come you always have to have it the hard way? Don't nobody want to be around that stuff, man. In the illustrious words of Swaggy P, You fight too much. You mean. You too mean. Don't nobody want to be around you. You tried to fight the commissioner and shit. You might have got defensive player of the year, Kenyon. But you just too mean. You there's always a problem. I believe that if I had to play make-believe, which everybody seems to be doing nowadays, if I had to play make-believe, my make-believe scenario of what Terrell Owens was telling Brandon Aiyuk was, hey, man, I went down this path, and I was the best receiver in the league while I was doing it. There was nobody else behind me while I was doing this. And I still I still had to pay the piper because of how I treated organizations, what I said in the media, how I gaslit the fans, how I made things harder for people who were just doing their job. You know, there are so many people involved in the NFL experience, the NFL process, who have nothing to do with how BA's getting paid. But every time he comes out and speaks and shows how he feels about the team, for some reason, they're the ones who have to clean that up. They're the ones who have to go and play pickup. You don't think that there's real people behind that feel a certain way? You don't think the organization feels a certain way about that? That's not a top-down, don't tread on me. I'm thumbing my nose at the man. Nah, man, that's bad business. Brandon Aiyuk is a private contractor. His contract is with the 49ers organization. That means that he is a business unto himself. He's a one-stop shop. So when you wild out, it ain't college. All right? It ain't, we got to put him under the brand and there's mechanisms to get him in line. Nah, man. That's you. You're supposed to be a grown man. And you out here acting like this. You get your first couple of $100,000 cars, and the first thing you want to do is plaster them all over social media while you're talking about your team. You even letting your food touch, man. It's messy. It's messy. And it's hard for people to take you seriously when you say you want to get paid $30 million a year. That's what I believe T.O. was telling him. If I was T.O. and I was talking to B.A., I'd be telling B.A., bro, don't go down my road, bro. Don't do what I did, man. And not for nothing, you weren't as good as me. And it happened to me. I'm giving you real spill, bro. You wasn't on my level, and it happened to me. So what makes you even any better? You think T.O. was really ready to retire? T.O. got pushed along. This is the truth. T.O. wasn't done playing. T.O. got shown the door. The juice ain't worth the squeeze, bruh. And the problem with Brandon Aiyuk is that you can't have that conversation this early in your career. So I hope they put their arms around the brother. I really do. I hope they spoke to him and let him know you punching at the sun, bruh, and you can't reach it. Your arms is too short to box with God, baby. You can't do it. What's up, Tom?
Hey, Coach.
I can't.
I'm
even
here,
see
but
you
I
now.
don't see me. Yeah.
Where's your cam
Can
at,
you hear
bro?
me?
I can hear you, man. Where's your cam at? Hold on, man.
I'm just going to provide radio audio commentary for the whole show.
All right, well, you know what? That's what Tom's going to do. Tom is just going to be here kicking it.
Yeah. So let's just figure this out. So the first thing I would say as T.O. is just, this isn't just about you. Football's a team sport. You have to make this about how you fit within the whole. And until you realize that, you're going to pay the price for being your own man.
Yeah.
You can't do that. And, and I look at this and say that, Andy Reid must be hearing T.O. is talking to Aiyuk about not being a diva, and Andy Reid's probably cracking up. But
yeah,
you can still get a lot of wisdom from learning what you went through. Aiyuk hasn't lived that yet. T.O. has. And I hope that Brandon was listening to what T.O. had to say.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same way, Tom. I mean, honestly, uh, it's disappointing. Uh, it's the same frustration that I had with Debo. Just frustration because you see a path for him. You see, like, man, this guy's really good. He could be a dude if he just keeps his nose clean, if he just works hard, right? And I'm gonna tell you, man, Brandon Aiyuk, man, it'll just be a sad story if he falls off. It'll be a sad story. So I want him to understand that, like, you got to take in all of it. All right, you can't be good to one side of the room and think that the whole room is going to take you in. It does not work that way, right?
No,
and T.O.,
especially in the NFL.
What was the number one thing that T.O. used to go? What was the number one thing that T.O. would grab when his character would be attacked? Ask anybody in the locker room. Ask anybody in the locker room. I got so many people in the locker room that love me. I'm one of the best teammates in the locker room, but you can't be coached. Can't nobody tell you nothing. You go off in the media anytime you want to and say whatever you want. You forgot to leave. You left all of that stuff out that T.O. did all religiously. He did it all the time and burned a lot of people who wanted to defend him. And I think Brandon, he needs to stop while he's ahead. He does. Because right now it's not a thing. But if he keeps it up, it's going to become something.
Well, Brandon is making this solely about himself. He needs to have the maturity to understand that this whole thing is bigger than him, and that if he gets within that flow within the locker room, that it's to his own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Being a great teammate, working hard in the field is how you made the $30 million a year in the first place. Stay on that path. Don't stay on the, look at the cars I bought. Look at all the stuff I have. Look how unhappy I am about Kyle. It's just take care of yourself, value your teammates, value your team, and move forward. Instead, it seems like all of this is just, it's too selfish. It's too self-absorbed. Yeah, and T.O. didn't get along with practically anybody.
No.
But he still learned from that experience and is trying to convey that to Aiyuk now. Don't make the mistake I did. I lived this. I was on the exact same path you are now. Look where it led. No rings and people saying I was a malcontent diva. That's where you're headed. Straight off a cliff. You want to win rings? Start working with your teammates. Start being the player you were. And stop being so jealous of Debo is playing with my guy in Washington. I want to go to Washington. Or Pittsburgh is looking for a playmaker. I want to go there. He wants to get away from Kyle. I understand that, but at the same time, you have to take care of your own business so that you make yourself more of a valued target for other teams. If you want to go someplace else, you have to make them want you. Right now, Aiyuk isn't doing that. He's making himself look like T.O. too.
Also, another thing too is that he does have a gripe, and I get it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know, he went out, kind of had to stand on business to get paid, you know, whatever. The teams went back and forth, but then once he gets paid, he's got to look at all of these articles coming from Tim Kawakami about how the Niners been trying to move off of him, that they hated doing the deal, that they hated the way the negotiations went, that even afterwards there were still talks of the Niners trying to see if anybody wanted to take moves on the Brandon Aiyuk deal still while he was hurt. So, you know, the Niners don't get off scot-free here either. No. But at the same time, it's just still no excuse to respond that way. Why? Like,
well, what
does
you
gain from that?
You? Exactly.
Thank you. What do you gain from that? What do you get from that? Except everybody not really understanding what the Niners did, but you highlighting it in a very toxic and unprofessional way publicly. It doesn't help you
at all.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, my man Ryan, what up, Ryan G? You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't help you, you know, and that's my biggest thing with BA is that simply put, grow up.
Yeah.
Grow up.
And appreciate what you do have and leverage the skills that you have and the person you have shown to be at times, and just be the best version of yourself and succeed. As opposed to, I don't like what Kyle did in the Super Bowl. I don't like Kyle, period. I want out of here. I want to be anywhere but here. Then you're not going to get what you want anyway.
Yeah.
Create your own opportunities by being the best version of yourself, as opposed to this exceptionally self-absorbed person we're seeing now.
Yeah. I think they going in on your individual picture over here. Your individual.
We're watching grass grow.
Hey, but I got a nice little, you know what I'm saying? I got a nice little metropolis right now in the background. We good.
Hey, I'm good.
All right, man. What I'm going to do is I'm going to probably take you down and try to put you back up real quick. It's not working.
No, just don't even have the grass. Just have you.
All right, it's not. No, I can't do just me. Hold on.
Oh, you can't? Okay.
Hold on. So can you talk?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, let's go, Tom.
Let's do this.
Let's do this. All right. So look, let me just create a banner. Tom speaking. So let's get into our roster moves. I understand that you have a unique take on what you believe that we need to do with the roster. So let me go ahead and reload the topic for you again. We've been kind of going through a lot of technical difficulties for the first 20 minutes of this show. So let's level set a little bit. Roster moves, Tom. Do the Niners still have roster holes that need to be filled? Or are fans just looking for name insurance at wide receiver, DB, and safety? How do you feel about it, Tom?
At wide receiver, I think fans are looking for name insurance, but the team drafted 4 wide receivers in the last 2 drafts. You have to leverage that. You have to let that grow, especially if you are going to move on from Aiyuk next year. You need those guys ready. They need to play this year. And if you're going to make that heavy an investment in the draft, what are you doing shelving them? They got to play. So It's time. Jordan Watkins has looked good for the most part, but Kyle says he's up and down. Today he had a blown route where he went deep when he's supposed to come back. But my concern is hearing Kyle saying he's up and down means that Watkins is going to be lucky to see that many targets.
Yes, that's one thing that I will say is that I pay attention to everything Kyle says, but specifically with receivers, because that's Kyle's that's his baby, the position. If Kyle can't trust you at running back or receiver, you're not playing. He will not play you. So
you have to show a total command of the offense or you're not seeing the field.
Right. But we're doing all of this without pads, Tom. So we got to see how it's going to bear out. Yeah. But I did hear that report off of a very good report that I heard about him just practically all throughout OTAs and his first minicamp practice. But blunders happen. He's a rookie for a reason. I wouldn't eat his lunch over this, to be honest with you. But really, this is kind of the shiny new toy. Talk to me about some of the guys that definitely should be taking the next step, or veterans that we need to lean on. So Juwan's already out with the calf. Demarcus Robinson's going to miss about the first. I believe he's going to miss the first 3. First 3 to 4 games. Yeah. What was that, DUI?
Yes.
For DUI. So what do the Niners look like week 1?
There's a lot of problems. There's plenty of holes. But in terms of what they would need to do at receiver, it's, will Juwan be healthy? If he is, then he's going to get a lot of targets because Kyle is going to Kyle. He's going to do what he always has.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is just what's the availability? Is Ricky Pearsall going to be healthy and available? If he is, he gets out there. If not, they're going to have to turn to Cowan. But I think the other thing that Kyle has to consider is Kittle. Is that he needs to be the team leader in targets this year, in my opinion. And that's how you deal with the receivers. Kittle is your primary guy. He's your go-to receiver.
Well, they finally got a blocking tight end in Luke Farrell that they acquired through free agency.
Right.
This could be the year where they do 2 tight end sets, leave Luke Farrell in to be that glorified that 6th offensive lineman. And we could see George have an uptick. I will tell you this is that I do feel like George is used under protest. Like, it's not necessarily like they have a plan for him. It's really when all else has failed, running game's not working, receivers aren't getting any separation, and then all of a sudden George just turns out a 3-touchdown game. or
Right.
George turns out Hannibal is on one. I know somebody's probably at the door. But
Okay.
yeah, he's just doing his job. But outside of that, I do see an uptick with George this year, but I I don't know what everybody is not going to be able to handle a George Kittle at tight end. But when we do, most teams that can handle tight ends have good secondary.
Yeah.
Can we realistically lead with our offensive attack as George Kittle being our number one receiver with the rest of these guys kind of leading up behind?
I think initially, yes. Until you get Aiyuk back, you're kind of limping along, especially if Jawan isn't fully healthy either. And then you're relying on Pearsall. He's not fully healthy either.
Mhm.
And then Jordan Watkins, Kyle doesn't trust him. Up and down is the comment. And then Cowing is playing well. He had 4 targets, 4 catches today, including a 20-yarder. So he's doing what he can, but there's really not a lot there that Kyle is going to trust. And I think that Kittle in this case is somebody that he can trust, and he's also someone that Purdy trusts. And so I think that that's why you, at least for the first 3 to 4 games, Kittle's your guy.
It doesn't sound too promising, Tom.
No, but that's going to be
But-
part of the problem for them starting the year is offense and defense. They're not going to be fully loaded. And so to this question on roster, so getting to the rest of it, DB, it's going to depend on what Renardo Green is looking like. OTAs, he got beat. There's some talk that he had a bad knee. So let's see if he's fully healthy. And if he is, great. But if he continues to struggle, they're going to need to look at a DB. I would not look at Jair Alexander, and I don't think he's going to look at the Niners anyway. There are
Right.
6 teams that are interested in him. He'll have a better opportunity someplace else. If Philly wants him, and rumors are they do, that's probably where he ends up. So that's gone. Trading for Jalen Ramsey, he's 30. There's some tread that's left the tire. I don't know about that one either. The free agent that I would look at is Asante Samuel if you need to get somebody, and that's only if Renardo Green doesn't look good.
Well, hold on, Tom. What about Jalen Ramsey at safety?
He hasn't played it before. He's not great in run support, but he would be brilliant in terms of reading the quarterback and playing center field. So in terms of the pass defense side of it, I think they'd be interested. But on the run D side, I'm not so sure they would be.
Yeah, I mean, I would see that he would give up a lot in the run D. My only question is I think that, I mean, he is at that point where he's still got a lot of talent and he's still got a lot of skill left. It's just on an older chassis. Safety could rejuvenate him.
Yeah, well, the core skill that he has is reading the quarterback and the receiver and anticipating the play, and he has the ball skills to make a play on the ball. And that's what you want in a center fielder at free safety. But will Salah want him given the run D concerns that would come with having Jalen Ramsey at free safety? I think that Salah would look at other safeties. And that's the third position that we've had here is safety is my biggest concern going into the year. Mustafa is not going to start the year. And who do you have? Jair, who's regressed. Pinnock, who started for the Giants. Grant, who started for Atlanta. Neither of whom were that good to begin with. Yeah, they're going to have 2 players out there in the starting defense week 1 who don't belong on the field. So to me, I think it's paramount that they have to sign, be it Justin Blackmon or Julian Simmons. Both of those guys are available. Both of those guys are exceptionally talented. Get one of them. Blackmon was all-pro, second-team all-pro in 23. Or no, Simmons was second-team all-pro in 23 and a Pro Bowler. And both of them have had at least 5 picks over the last 2 years. Both of them have been very good in passes defensed. They know how to play the position. They can play it, run and pass. I think that if you look at all of these and say, who should the Niners still invest in? A safety. They have to add one. If they don't, they go up and you look at the opponents in the first 8 weeks, most of them are strong-armed quarterbacks that can throw deep. They can burn a safety. That's going to be a problem. You don't have Mustafa and you're starting Pinnock and Grant. Good luck.
Yeah, so we're gonna see Sam Darnold in Seattle. I don't know who's over there in New Orleans. We got Kyler in week 3. The Jacksonville, we got Trevor Lawrence. We go see Matt Stafford in week 5, and then we get Baker Mayfield week 7. We get who's that? Michael Penix Jr. at week 7 against Atlanta. We get CJ Stroud in week 8.
That's a lot of guys that can test safeties.
Yeah.
You can have a good team, but they're also going to have all these rookies that are going to start. So you have to deal with the rookie transition on top of having a crater at safety. I think they have to fill it. The question is, will they? And I'm not sure. We don't know if the Yorks have hit a roster ceiling in terms of what they're willing to spend. They could draw a line in the sand and say, we're not doing anything else. This is it. If so, that's going to be a problem for them because the first half of the year, with all these quarterbacks that can test safeties deep and substandard safeties that should not be starting for this Niner team, that's a problem.
All right, so Jesus, Tom, you're always killing me with the theatrics.
Yeah, me with my Debbie Downer takes all the time. I'm sorry, but that's the one that I'm worried about. But the thing is, it's possible to fix. That's the thing. You can get Simmons or Blackman, and you're good. Get it done.
Justin Simmons is still out there. I don't know. What's the holdup on Justin Simmons? He's a little older. He's 32 years old. He played 91.4% of the snaps the last season that he's played. Is he really just looking for the best deal? Like he can just afford to wait?
Yeah, safeties normally do because they end up signing with teams that discover that the safeties we have aren't good enough, and then all of a sudden there's a market for safety. You look at how late the Niners were in getting
Gipp.
Gipp. Yeah, he was signed in camp or right before?
In camp. Yeah.
So I think that could happen here as well, where you've got safeties that are available, and then teams discover, you know what, we need this guy. And so these guys wait because there's a market for them once camp begins or right before. I think that's what's happening is their agents are telling them, wait it out, somebody will come to us. And usually someone does.
Okay. So is there anybody else outside of Julian Backman? Do you like Jordan Whitehead?
Not really. Those are the two that I trust and that would make the most sense.
Quandre Diggs is still out there too.
Yeah, Diggs would be nice. And I prefer the other two over him, but if they're too expensive in their demands, then you can go to Diggs.
Yeah. Gipp is still out there
but
too.
The point is you got to do something. You can't just roll out and say, we're going to have Pinnock and Richie Grant as our safeties. No, can't do that.
Well, wait a minute. You don't think that Jair Brown's you think Jair Brown's gonna get demoted?
Yeah, I don't think Jair's going to get a starting job. But we'll see how he develops. Has he returned to the form that he had under Steve Wilks? Probably not.
You know what? That's so true. Steve Wilks was really good for two players.
Yeah.
He was really good for Jair Brown, and he was very good for Travarius Ward. Steve Wilks was very instrumental in their career. It really, dude, do you remember after, so during that camp, there was reports of Steve Wilks always doing extra work with Travarius Ward and, work with him after camp, after practice, all types of stuff. And I remember early on, when things were good, Travarius Ward was asked about, how he felt about Coach Wilks. And he gave him his flowers. You know what I mean? He's just like, yo, man, he's a really good dude. That dude know what he's talking about. I really like him. And then, dude, after Wilks kind of got scapegoated, they asked him again, how'd you feel about the season? He was just like, yeah, man, he really didn't show me nothing. Because remember, I think he made all pro that year or something, made it to the Pro Bowl or something. And they asked Travarius Ward, what impact did Coach Wilks have on this, on your season this year? And he was just like, he was okay. He didn't really do that much. And I was like, oh, that was crazy.
You know what I'm saying? They railroaded him. I don't think that was right at all.
Yo, Kenny's
And
dirty.
it makes sense that cover zero Wilkes. Okay, Kenny, true. That was not smart. Nonetheless,
Oh, it's
Wilkes
funny.
was a DB specialist, and we saw
Mhm.
the results of that in Mooney Ward and in Jair. And since Wilkes left, what's happened to Jair? Straight off a cliff.
Definitely. All right, man, let's get into our next topic. How will Kyle remake the offense? Debo is gone. Aiyuk is out. CMC is fragile. Shanahan can remake the offense. What would you like to see? What do you predict will happen?
What I'd like to see is what we talked about earlier. If this, you have to involve Kittle more, especially in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
Will Kyle do that? His history tells us no.
Well, you kind of just grand opening, grand closing, Tom. Jesus,
Sorry.
leave something for the rest of us, killer. Well, to expound on it, I believe that he's going to have to show us something a lot different than he has in years past.
Exactly.
The pressure is really on. This is a different type of pressure. Usually the pressure is on for them to it's more of in a linear fashion, right? Start from the bottom, you go to the top. You know what I mean? Like and when you look at it that way, it's kind of easy because you know exactly where you stand, and it kind of, once you know that, more oftentimes than not, you're going to go to the playoffs as a loaded team. You could kind of talk about the playoffs and almost kind of like as if it's a foregone conclusion, right? Like, yeah, we're really trying to, earlier on in years past, we would be able to talk about it during the offseason. Like, yo, it is really important that we get the number 1 seed this year because it was just known that we're going to the Super Bowl. If we have a very high chance of going to the Super Bowl, and how we're going to do it is if we shape our season this way. And sometimes people that are really good at tests, it doesn't mean that they're really good at the subject. It just means that they really know they're really good at taking the standardized version of the litmus test. And making the easy look easy and beating teams that you're better than and putting together a comparable season without a loaded roster where you have to show real perseverance, you have to show real growth. You can't just rely on names. I believe that's just as hard for a team who's not Super Bowl bound to achieve that, just as hard as there's a team who's loaded and they need to go to the Super Bowl. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That they need to understand that, and I think Kyle maybe is more aware of this year, is that coming off a 6-win season, you have to prove your skills and ability on your own. Mm-hmm. You've got this team, you've got skilled players. Okay, now let's see you design, as we're coming to expect from you, that you're one of the top minds offensively in the league. Prove it. Now you don't have all these guys that are in their prime, best in their position in the league. You don't have 5 of those this year. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to go about this? And Kyle has more time in the sense that, okay, you've got Salah. You don't need to dabble in the defense. You certainly don't need to dabble in special teams. You've got the opportunity in terms of your time management to really up your game offensively and get something different out there. Is that something he's going to do? His history would say no, but the opportunity before him, if he does succeed, is that he can get the extension he wants.
Right.
And so the carrot and the stick are clearly in view in both directions for Kyle. If you can innovate and make this team great on offense without having the best players in the league, you've just proven the reason why we should extend you. On the other hand, if you revert back to what you've always done and the team doesn't make the playoffs for whatever reason, your job is in jeopardy. I think Kyle is aware of both.
I also think that there's a kicker here that actually brings that scenario to reality. All of that can be true, right? Got a team, you don't win, you don't lead them the best way, you don't make it to the playoffs. But there's something that Kyle has been able to get away with this for like the past 4 to 5 years. He always has a built-in scapegoat. If they lose in some way, somehow, we have like a top 10 defense in the NFL, that's Kyle's death note. There's no way that we cannot make the playoffs and the defense is actually put together. Like the defense actually was decent this year. Like I'm thinking top 10 for our defense is adequate.
Yeah, by the end of the year, I think they'll get to top 10, but you need those rookies to develop
Right.
and become more consistent and contribute. So I don't think that they're going to be a top 10 defense out of the gate, but I do think they will evolve into that over the course of the year. The question becomes, will the offense do the same thing, or will the offense do it in reverse? You've got all these veterans. You don't want to play your rookies. Are you going to start hot and then these guys get hurt and then you flounder? Now, this team needs to deal with both of those arcs, the rookie defenders growing and the veteran offense weapons staying healthy and continuing to go forward as Kyle innovates. I think that Kyle has to be aware of the fact that this is your prove it year. You don't have any excuses. You don't have any built-in excuses to point to. This is on you now. Get it done.
Yeah. I'm not there yet, Tom. I'd give Kyle one more year. I think organizationally they're really giving a lot of last year to just extenuating circumstances, like stuff that is just out of their hands, right? The Ricky Pearsall getting shot and Javarius Ward and Trent Williams having family issues off the field, and Brandon Aiyuk going down with injuries. Christian McCaffrey having a hard time getting going, right? Never really getting Dre Greenlaw off the ground. I think he played like maybe 40 snaps throughout the entire year. And Devondre Campbell was a train wreck. So in certain ways, I could see, I hate to say this, but I could see the organization putting a lot of that stuff to, what are you going to do? That's out of their hands, right? They're unpreventable. You just got to, you got to roll with the dice. But I think that this year, if they put out another bad year, next year would be the hot seat.
Right. I don't think that Kyle would be fired right away, even though that's something that they might consider depending on the record.
True.
But what we saw with Brock's contract is everything lines up where 2027, 2026, you've got opt-outs for Brock's contract, and it's possible that they can say, okay, this hasn't worked. If they don't have success,
right,
they can move on from Kyle, John, and Brock all at the same time. And I think that that's the option they would consider, that if they do move on from Shanahan, it's going to be a clean sweep. It's not going to be, we're just going to get rid of Kyle. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it would be all three.
Agreed. Let's get into our next topic. Trent Williams, baby. Trent Williams, he hinted he may play through 41, but he's taking it year to year. How will Kyle react? Will he finally invest in offensive line at the top of the draft next year, or keep kicking the can with Trent Williams? Man, I'm going to tell you this. This is not the first time, Tom, that Trent has said this. And every time he says this, it doesn't make me feel like he wants to play football. It makes me feel like there's another bag in there somewhere. I'm going to keep paying. I'm going to keep playing till you stop paying. Like, I really get that vibe from him. What do you feel like we could gain from another 5 years of Trent Williams, 6 years of Trent Williams? How do you feel? Tom.
I'm sorry, you froze on me. But yeah, your point of just Trent's done this before. Yeah. And the takeaway that you come out from this is Trent wants to get paid, but he isn't sure if he can continue to play physically. And after the emotional difficulties that he faced last year, he may think that it's just time to move on. But my concern is that Kyle can lean on that and say, well, Trent says he wants to keep on playing, so I don't need to draft a tackle. I don't want Kyle to think in those terms. And that's Trent saying that helps Kyle get away with that to a degree. But I think that looking into next year's draft, I think this year's draft was defense. Next year's draft is offense. Kyle will say it's my turn. And then we have to see, will you take tackles first? And I think that the draft falls in such a way that where the Niners probably pick, which would be like early 20s, that tackle would make the most sense. And you look at the offensive line in terms of what's there, and it's just there's a lot that's available, and there's a lot of needs that theoretically you could have no one left but Pooney. Trent could retire. Brendel could retire, and the rest of the people are free agents. They're all gone. You need to prepare for that possibility at least. I think I look into next year's draft and say they got to come out of that draft with 3 offensive linemen minimum.
Yeah. Steve-O just said, assuming next year's draft is offense is foolery. Why? We just loaded up on defense this year. We have, look, left guard is at large. Trent Williams, we don't know what's going to happen there. Colton McKivitz is a free agent this year. And Jake Brendel is at large. We got to get a whole offensive line outside of Dominic Pooney next year. That's happening. So I believe that at least 1 to 2 offensive linemen need to get drafted next year. Even if Trent stays, you still need a center and a left guard. And then you can negotiate with Colton McKivitz where who knows? I'm hearing Colton McKivitz had a phenomenal offseason, Tom. Who knows what we get out of Colton McKivitz where he gets down to the negotiation table with us. We got him for $7 million annually. That's crazy for a starting right tackle.
It is, but it's what Kyle's comfort zone is in terms of paying right tackles. That's what he wants to do. But for McKivitz, he might look at it and say, look what just happened. How much women are getting paid. If I can up my game in the offseason and make myself available, I'm going to price myself out for the Niners. He could get 14, 15 million or more. Yeah. As Lee says, Denver could say, oh boy, here's another Niner offensive lineman we can overpay. It's entirely possible. The market being what it is, it leans itself and leads itself both to McKivitz moving on and the Niners saying, okay, go. So that alone is why you have to take an offensive lineman and preferably a tackle in the first round next year. But I do think Steve-O, and I will normally agree with Steve-O on most things, but on this one, I think offense is going to be the focal point.
It's going to be
not only the offensive line. You've got Christian McCaffrey. Is that McCaffrey is in a contract year in a sort in this year, in that after next year or after this year's season plays out, he can be cut and you get a $14 million dead cap hit and you lose the rest of what's on his contract. His last year is $24 million. Niners are going to want to move on from that if Christian's done, and he might be. If he's lost as much in his speed as has been reported, if he can no longer separate from a linebacker, he no longer has the value he once did. They could move on, and they're going to need to get a better running back than Jordan James. So that's another one. That's 4 players. Plus, you're going to need to get a tight end. That's 5. You've got 5 offensive players that you're going to need to draft.
All right, man. So, look, we've already talked about the 5 offensive players. I say Trent stays as long as Kyle wants him. I believe that there's guys here that they're just not going to traditionally let them go, right? I don't believe that. Like, I don't think that Christian McCaffrey is ever really going to get cut. I don't think that Trent Williams is going to get cut. I don't. I think that they're going to find a way how to sit them down, how to kind of fade them into the black, but I don't think that there's going to be like just a clean break. So we'll see. And then there's always that, hey, we're going to play until I want to play. And another thing, too, is that Kyle gets that from his dad. Mike Shanahan played a lot of old players. A lot of guys played a long time for Mike Shanahan because it was just what he trusted out of these guys. So, I get the same feeling out of all these guys, out of Fred, George, CMC, and Trent. So we're going to have to see how that bears out in the future. Let's get on to our next topic. Expectations. 10-7 in a wild card. If the 49ers exceed that, will John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan get an extension? If they fall short, is Kyle fired in 2025? Talk to me, Tom. How do you feel about it?
I think that Jed would lean toward wanting to extend Kyle because it's part of the status for the Niners is to have, and that they don't have to worry about it. They say that, how can you criticize me? Kyle Shanahan's my coach. He's one of the best offensive minds in the league, blah, blah, blah. So it's a fallback for Jed. It's cover for him. But at the same time, if they don't make the play 2 years, you have to then look at it and say, Kyle is in year 9. Next year will be 10. And your team isn't getting better, it's getting worse. You're going to have to move on. And you've got Saleh as your fallback option, which the fans would embrace. So I think that they are in a position where, for the first time in a while, because Saleh is here, they have the option of moving on from Kyle. I don't think they'll do it next year, regardless of what happens this year. But I do think they would do it in 2026, unless they were worried that Saleh was going to leave if somebody else wanted to hire Saleh.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, Tom. I do believe that the transition of Coach Saleh possibly becoming our head coach would have to be two-pronged. One, the Niners would have to have all of their business together with Kyle to be able to move on. But two, there would also have to be something of a little bit of interference where it's like, we better move on this because Robert's about to go interview for a couple of jobs that we know he's not coming back here once he leaves the building. So we might as well be at least, we can't guarantee that he'll stay here. Oh, let me ask you something. Do you think that it's all but a lock if the Niners would interview Robert Saleh? Because it's like, dude, we're not doing this with Kyle unless we know that we have our guy in tow. Or would they be strong enough to let Kyle go and get out there and get it how they live like everybody else and just go get a guy?
I think that's the latter is what they could and should do, but I don't think that Jed has the strength to do that. Jed's going to want to work with the safety net. He's going to want to have Saleh.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that he would definitely need to make sure that that's a locked deal before he would even think about letting go of Kyle. I feel like he has tipped his hand so much by fawning over Kyle in public. Like, he does not have to do all of that. It weakens him to do that. I don't understand why he does that. Okay.
Me either.
Let's move into our next topic. Tom, you're doing a phenomenal job. We're almost out of here, buddy. All right. So the last topic is depth. All right. The 49ers are realistically in a 2-year rebuild. They need another draft class before the roster can contend, which we've discussed. That puts pressure on the backups for this year, particularly with high numbers of injuries. Which young backups do you have faith in to step up? I got a guy that nobody's really talking about that I think is like slow. He's quietly going about his work. CJ West. He's quietly going about his work. I think that for a lot of the guys, we're getting caught up because obviously there's holes in DB and safety. And we're trying to figure out what the young guys are doing there. I believe that just because Dre left so big of a pair of shoes to fill at that weak side linebacker spot, I think that's why people are still talking about whether it's D. Winters or Nick Martin. But for me, man, CJ West gives me DJ Jones vibes. Just like, yo, I'm just here to show up and play, dog. I really believe in CJ West.
And a complete player on top of that. He can run and pass defend. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a value to them. And they've talked about his violent hands, his shedding ability. CJ West was my favorite pick in the draft. We both loved it when they did CJ West, and we were both excited about that.
Very excited.
And there's a reason for that. Great player. And so we'll see if CJ West can bring it. But yeah, that's the same vibe that I get, is just, here's somebody that's just a lunch pail guy. He's just going to, I'm here to put in the work and get it done. And I think he will. And so that's one. CJ West, definitely. Another guy that I'm looking to, a couple of guys. One would be Sam Aquanu, who I think has shown some flashes. And I think he could be an important piece this year. And we'll see what he can do. He needs to be more consistent, but I think he's got the skills. And as he gets more seasoning and gets a feel for the league, I think that Sam can be a great player for them this year as a rotational depth piece. And the other guy that's kind of forgotten is Curtis Robinson, the linebacker, who played well last year until he got hurt early, went down. I think he has the knowledge to play linebacker in this system, and he's going to contribute.
Yeah. My only thing with Curtis Robinson is I was really on him 2 years ago. when he left and
Yeah.
went to Denver, I was so sold on him. I was gutted when we couldn't keep him. But ever since he got hurt, I don't know, man. I don't know I don't know how he's gonna keep it going.
He has to show that he can get healthy again. He hasn't shown that yet. He's been hurt again in camp.
Yeah. You know who
But
else
if
is
he
kind of
can, then we'll see.
You know who else I'm kind of looking forward to take the next step? Isaac Guerendo. I think Isaac Guerendo
in a specialized role. Not
in a
every down
specialized
back.
role, but
There's a guy that you can just
go ahead, Tom.
I just think that he's somebody that you can use in the way that they use Debo. In that all you have to do is just put him in open space and let him work. And hopefully Kyle figures out what are the best ways to do that.
You know who else that I have been quietly paying attention to, and I think that he's another quiet worker that's going to make an impact some way, somehow on this team? Spencer Burford at tackle. He came in as a tackle. They converted him to guard. Now, this is how I feel about Spencer Burford. If you're talented enough to play out of position and make an NFL roster, I at least got to give you a shot to see what you play at your real position.
Yeah.
I think
and he'll get that opportunity, provided that Trent goes down. He probably will.
Yeah, I believe it's also him and Pleasance. They're competing for the swing tackle job. So
yeah,
look, I'll tell you this, man. I've seen pictures of Spencer Burford. He looks good. He looks in great shape. I had a lot of high hopes for Spencer Burford last year, and he got hurt and he didn't have a camp. Last year was so bad for him because he never really got off the ground. He was always nicked up. And I felt bad for him because of the way that the season ended for him the year prior in the Super Bowl. I felt like he got railroaded. And I don't believe that he's that type of player. I think that he's very good. I've always thought that he was playing out of position. He's not a guard. And because he necessarily doesn't have like the height, he hasn't been taken seriously at the tackle position. But I'm gonna tell you, man, I think that Spencer Burford has an axe to grind. I believe if I'm him, I feel like I didn't get a fair shot last year. And there were other people. He not only didn't play last year, he lost his starting job, but he lost his backup job. Ben Barch was getting in at guard before him. Jalen Moore was getting in at tackle before him. So for him to stick around, and I hope that he puts it together all this summer, especially the last 50 days before camp. I think that Spencer Burford's a very talented, athletic, finesse tackle. And I think that him being able to at least be serviceable at guard, he's already known how to take on the power of a bigger man down in those trenches in that 3 technique and that 2-eye. So with him being able to go up against edges, I think that gives him a little bit more of a nasty streak because he spent a couple of years down inside. What do you think?
I think that also gives him more confidence in both positions, at guard and tackle. And the likelihood is Barch is going to get hurt. Trent's going to get hurt. They're going to need Spencer Burford. Right. And he's in his contract year. So I expect him to come in and be ready to play and to try to make an impact. I don't think that the Niners would keep him. I think he'll go to the free market and get paid. But for this year, chances are good that Spencer's going to get plenty of time at both positions. And he's got every motivation to be ready to deliver on that. And as you point out, last year was kind of a lost opportunity for him. This year is his chance to really prove himself and say, here's what I can do in the league, and prove himself to the entire league. And I think that that's going to help market him as he moves on to the next team next year.
I feel the same way. I think that, we may not keep him, but there could be a sweet spot where we get the guy paid and he shows us a little bit of worth. We've already talked about Trent. We've talked about the pass rush, and we've definitely gone into safeties in corners. But we really haven't taken a chance to talk about the running back room.
Okay.
Now there was a topic that we've been floating for the past couple of days, especially on this channel. Monday, me and Jesse talked about it. We kind of really cleaned it up on the 4-man front yesterday, but nobody does a better conversation take like me and you, Tom. So
that's right.
The overall premise is this: either or. Do you save Christian knowing that he needs to be paced out and given a package this year due to, number one, attrition, the position of the career that he's in, injury history, with the fact that we know that he can't get nicked up easily, and the fact that Christian likes to take control of his own workload, meaning that he does not come off the field if he doesn't want to. Now, we understand at this stage of his career, with what happens to running backs across the game, that Father Time is undefeated. So if we start Christian and use him as the bell cow back, we understand that it's not a matter of if, but when will he go down. Okay.
Right. And you had the over-under in the 4-man yesterday, and they all chickened out.
Yes, they did. You know what?
I won't.
The shit's chess. It ain't checkers.
That you won't. Let's do it.
That's correct.
Jesus. We're not. So, you know what? Let me say this. We are not hoping for an injury. We're not wishing for it. That's not what we're doing.
No.
What we're doing is that recent studies show that if you pay attention to what has been going on with CMC, what needs to happen with him is he needs to get paced out. However, the flip side of this is business as usual. 20 plus touches from scrimmage. Christian McCaffrey is the tip of the spear. He's the focal point of our offense, and then we just run him into the ground. Now, obviously, we've already talked about cases for the former, right? Which is why you need to package him. But I got a case for the latter.
Okay, let's hear it.
The money.
Oh, sure. And I've made the exact same point, is that after this year, you can cut him, take a $14 million dead cap hit, and he's done. We've seen what Christian has done when he's motivated by money and in a contract drive.
Yeah.
He had Offensive Player of the Year. He insisted on never leaving the field, and Kyle is going to placate those wishes. Kyle's going to say, go ahead, because Kyle wants the best player on the field. That's Christian. So I think that all things being equal, the chances are high that Christian's going to get a heavy workload.
Yeah. And you know what? There's a part of me that's like, man, why are we watching the inevitable? But then there's also a part of me that's like, man, we about to watch the inevitable. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're the one who held out and wanted to get your bread. Now us pay. You know what? If Christian wouldn't have held out last year for that money, the whole conversation would be completely different on Christian. What would we be saying? You got to save him from himself. We're finally getting into the cream of the deal where it's team friendly. We've already paid him his money. It'd be stupid to run him into the ground when it's like paying off your car and then going rally kart racing with it. You just paid the last car note.
Yeah. What are you
doing? What are you doing? But now that we refied on a bucket and we got another car note, man, run that shit into the ground. Like, we getting what we paid for. Because you know what's sad about this? If he gets hurt, if he goes down, it won't be worth the money that he's getting paid.
No. Well, it never was. He was already the top paid player at running back in the league and got a raise on top of that. And so he's always been overpaid. But then, so that's going to be the mindset. Christian's going to say, I need to play every down because I'm in a contract drive. I need to get those last 2 years of my deal, especially the one in 2027 where he gets $24 million. That's his motivation. Kyle is going to say, fine by me.
You ain't making it to that year.
But here's the thing. Can Christian hold up? And we get back to your over-under from yesterday, 10 weeks, right? That was your over-under?
I said 10 weeks, yeah.
I'm taking the under. I think it's week 9, New York. You're going across the country. You're playing at 10 a.m. West Coast time on one of the worst fields in the NFL. That does not bode well for Christian McCaffrey.
I know, man. I hope we're wrong, Tom.
Me too.
But you're a dog for giving me a week, though. Way not to shirk. I like it. Tom, this is a great show, man. All things considered. A rough start, even a crazier finish. But we got it done. So glad that we got to be able to go back up again.
Me too.
What do you got going on for the rest of the week, brother?
Oh, I'm off the Niners stuff for a while. They're going to be gone for a while, so no, I'm getting back to my novel.
Definitely, man. And I'm going to get back to work. So, hey, man, look, Tom, this was awesome. This is the coach signing off with my boy Tom. Stay low and keep your feet moving. You guys stay good, man. We'll talk to you.